K-Dog.
What's up?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Dun, 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 dun.
Anything you want to talk about first before I get rolling?
I don't think so. I feel like I was going to come in here with a topic, and I don't remember what it was, so...
If lightning strikes at any point, throw it out
I'll
there.
I'll just yell out
Frickin'
loud.
derail. I don't care. Like, that's what we do. Like, it almost feels like you
Yeah.
get something off your chest. You get, this is our therapy session.
It is. I've tried to tell my friends and family what exactly our show is about. It's almost like when people describe Seinfeld, it's a show about nothing. I say, we just hit record and go. And Lord
Well, there's
knows.
certain people that these topics get in your system and you got to get it out. Like, you got to say your
Yes.
thing on it.
Yeah.
And this is a great platform to do it because nobody could talk back at us. And so,
I know.
so we can just say whatever the frick we want.
I've had the idea, and I still think maybe one day we should, is I feel like we should almost do like Facebook Live or be live on social media and take comments on whatever
you don't
it is
want
we're
to do
talking
that.
about.
Like, you understand.
It's
You're the
gonna be
smartest
ridiculous.
person in the conversation. What more could the rest of the public add?
I don't know. It could just be such a shit show that it would be hilarious, but
I'm open to it.
We'll think about it.
I'm open to it.
Yeah.
We get a good,
Maybe
group
if
of
people comment on this video and say, yes, I think you should do that, then we'll do it.
But we don't read the comments. So how are we going to ever know those messages? They're just never going to know.
I might have to take a peek.
All right, first topic.
Okay.
So I'm a 90s rebel kid. And so like Rage Against the Machine and F you, I won't do what you tell me was like it was my mantra, right? Hate the machine and whatever.
Really?
Oh, frick yeah. So my government hatred
God.
started when I was real young. And what I
Anarchy.
noticed is like there were a bunch of people that were raging against the machine in that time. And it seems like slowly over time, the Rage Against the Machine is like, then the masks come along is like, I'll wear it, I guess, if you suggest it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we lost all of that gruff behind saying, F you, you're not going to tell me what to do. And, there are very little of us out there. So are you rebellious in that way?
I was not. No. In fact, I was probably the opposite. I was the 90s kid that was high anxiety, worried about getting in trouble.
Okay.
And follow the rules and don't upset anyone.
Oh, so you're the problem. The rest of the world assimilated to you, the wussies.
I was the machine.
You were, but I think it's important, and I think there was a lot of wisdom in that. If you don't push up against the machine takes, great liberties in taking yours away.
Yeah.
And you got it in order that pushback. Now, I think that era was more on the side of anarchy, and I do think that rules are necessary to keep people honest. But the machine is so oppressive now, and there's nobody really pushing against it because everything. So there's no principled pushback, right? You have like the Dipsy shits. They were real mad about war when.
Shit.
Yeah, the Dipsy shits. They were real mad about war when one guy was president, and then after he's not president anymore, I guess war's just fine, right? So if you have consistency in your messaging.
Well, no,
What?
I totally get what you mean.
Go ahead.
To their defense, didn't one of them die?
I don't know.
I think one of them died, which may have put a damper on their...
But still,
Yeah.
I mean, even Green Day, okay? So Green Day's real mad when George W. Bush is there,
yeah.
and now they can't wait till September comes to pass because they're just not true to the principle. They have no convictions.
They get a little
in what they-
hypocritical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're political rather than principled. Like if you hate war, I have respect for you if you hate war no matter who's in charge. But if you
Yeah.
only hate war as a cudgel against somebody that you disagree with politically, then F you, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of what the Rage Against the Machine people did is they bailed on the principle and they're like, I guess when you get comfortable, right?
Yeah.
You have your own, you're like, okay, well the machine's good for me. I'm nice and
Listen, but the machine benefited me a little bit.
Exactly.
So I don't want
Exactly.
to push too much.
Yeah. Yeah, so when it benefits you, you're with it, and if it doesn't,
Yeah, and I think there are a handful of those still trying to push against it. But now their job is harder because not only do they have the machine they're pushing against, but they have that whole new era now of people that they thought would help them, but went, hey, look, you know what? Machine kind of helped me out. So
That's exactly, yeah.
you shouldn't actually. And in fact, I'm going to join forces with the machine and push against you.
Well, there's still machines that are disliked, okay? And we talked about the insurance companies last week, and everybody hates the insurance companies, right? And everybody pushes against the insurance companies because they're representing an evil that we disagree with, right? But yet we will keep giving power to the machine. So it's almost like the idiot version of Rage Against the Machine. It's like, I'm going to do what you tell me to do, and you better give it to me, or else I'm going to go in the streets and complain a whole lot and, you know, hit my protest and chant a bunch. I'm going to chant you into submission, right? Because here's what happened. We fed everybody soy, and their nuts just went right up into their body. And there's so little testosterone to stand up against the machine, right? That we can't hang out there. Like, I'm going to hate you until you give me my way. You know, it's like little 5-year-olds.
Yeah, and it's a right. It's my right to have this thing that you have and that you can offer. So it's my right for you to give it to me at no cost to me. And if you don't, then I'm going to make your life
Democrats can't get rid of that whole slavery thing, right? So socialized anything is basically saying there are certain industries that you want people to work, right? You want to own their labor, right? They can't be free people. We want to earn, or we want to own whatever it is that they earn. So now, you know, doctors are a nice big group where if we're like, hey, we want what you do to be free, right?
Yeah.
And so if it was voluntary, if everybody like, hey, we want socialized medicine. Hey, you're a doctor and you're a socialist. Cool. Work for free for a couple of years and do your public service and give people free medical care. Oh, me? No, not me.
Yeah, no.
My favorite is when that video where somebody was like, yeah, the illegal immigrants, we should give them housing. And they pull up the bus in front of their house and a bunch of illegal immigrants and say, these guys are staying with you. And they're like, no, not me. I'm not personally involved in this.
Oh, yeah, I feel that way when it comes to things like war. When people are like, we need to send our military in and we need to go ahead and bomb this country and we need to do this and that. Okay, well, your son's going to go.
Or you.
Or you yourself.
You're passionate about it?
Pick up a gun.
Yeah.
Ship
so I
out.
say, if you like paying lots of taxes, shit, give all of your... They have a form you can fill out where you could send more than is required to the government and they can keep it. You like taxes so much? How much are you paying, dipshit?
Yeah.
You want to go to... You like wars? Freaking pick up an M16 and get on the next bus overseas.
Yeah.
And every one of these... Again, if they had the nuts and you had to put yourself on the line and inconvenience yourself, I bet you wouldn't believe in half the shit that you say you believe in.
Yeah, I agree. And anything that you think somebody should give you, are you willing to give that to someone else?
Exactly. So when you get muddle through all of the bullshit, what it comes down to is you don't like somebody or you don't disagree with them, so you want to use the machine to hurt somebody that you disagree with. So we hate billionaires, so let's take all of their money and we'll put it in the guise of we want free healthcare or we want free something. We know where it's going, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's just so dishonest. If you think we should have socialism, frickin' sell it, right? Sell me on it, and if it sucks, F you.
Yeah, and what's frustrating too, though, is in this day and age, though, it almost doesn't matter what you do. Nothing is good enough for people. Nothing. And actually, the perfect example I think comes to mind is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was like America's sweetheart, and everybody loves her, and she's so amazing, and her shows sell out like crazy, and anything she touches, she influences, and it makes money, like the NFL or record sales or anything. And then I started seeing things like, oh, Taylor Swift's carbon footprint with her private jets and using the jet all the time. And they were going after her for that. And then it was, oh, Taylor Swift might vote for someone else. And now we got to boycott because we don't like who she votes for. And screw the fact that she has literally given billions of dollars away to charity, to good causes, to pay her staff very well, all kinds of stuff. The moment they see somebody do something that they don't agree with, or maybe they aren't a part of, now they want to criticize.
Well, here's where I'll disagree with you.
Okay.
She introduced herself into that world, and that is the flack. So let's just say you're president and you're like, this is my kid. Not in politics, whatever. they're off limits. No guns at them, right? But then you leverage your kid and start using them in campaign ads or using them to get elected. They're freaking fair game. So once you start playing there, like, I'll agree with you. I think everybody goes through this, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Taylor Swift. They're darlings, and then they hit a level of success, and then people are just gunning for them. And that's just all envy across the board. But I think once the football players starts getting into politics and they start getting inundated with the hatred from politics, you brought that on yourself. Stay the shit out of it. If you're a singer, freaking sing. If you're a football player, freaking play football. Stay out of the parts where you don't want to get the negative sides of it. Again, we embrace and we invite the positive sides of where we introduce ourselves, but then we get super offended when the negative side comes, and that's bullshit. It's what you purchased.
How do you feel about Taylor Swift's carbon footprint with her private jet?
It depends. If she is this, if she's this advocate for the environment and she is creating a contradiction between what she does and what she says to do, then fair game. Like, I've never heard her.
I would say if she never mentioned it.
Yeah, she's not playing in that department. So, I mean, I could care less. It's only fun when somebody says something and then does the other thing, right?
Yeah.
And pointing that out is great fodder. But I've never heard her make an environmental statement at all. Have you?
I
think
so.
The fact that she's a lefty just kind of puts her into the camp where she must be environmentalist, but I've never heard her say anything. So,
but is she a lefty?
I think she's a lefty, yeah.
Why? Because she supported Kamala Harris.
For sure.
But does anyone who support someone make them that side?
She went to a Montessori school. She's an artist. She supported the Democrat candidate. She's not ever done anything on the libertarian and conservative side, so it's a pretty fair guess that says she's a lefty.
You know a lot more about Taylor Swift than I thought you would.
Yeah.
How do you know what kind of school she went to?
Well, my kid went to a Montessori, and they prop her up as the icon for Montessori education.
They do?
She's a famous Montessori kid, yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Lots of lefties come out of the Montessori system, I'll tell you that.
Ah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's Googleable. I'm sure.
Googleable.
It's Googleable.
Everything is Googleable.
Yes. Is Taylor
Because they can't put anything on the
Swift
internet that isn't true.
Nope. A lefty. I'll even use lefty.
Right-handed? We did not specify.
Google
No,
owned
she
me
is
just now.
right-handed.
Characterized as a liberal, Swift is pro-choice and advocate of gender equality, LGBT rights, and gun control, and a vocal critic of racism, white supremacy, sexism. She's a lefty.
What's the source of that? Just curious.
Wikipedia.
Uh-huh. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I would personally think those things too. My point being, finding things on the internet, believing they're true, having not actually heard the person say something.
It's a pretty good guess that she is a lefty, okay? Until it's indicated.
A Swifty lefty.
Until it's indicated, everything, 90% is lefty and 10% is unknown. I'm going with lefty until she comes out with some kind of conservative something.
But to your point, though, you would say it's not necessarily bad to be a lefty, only if you are complaining about things that then you yourself do.
Yeah.
Hypocritical,
yeah. Yeah, because we love that. Like, the internet loves that as well, to, dig through those where you've not been able to come true on your values that you state publicly and hold other people accountable to them. We like people to live their principles, and then if you advocate for them, you have to be a model of those principles.
Yeah.
And when you're not, we gang tackle you.
Like, I don't care who you are, you should suffer the consequences if you break
sure.
the law.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when someone doesn't have to do that.
Rage against the machine.
Yeah.
Gotta rage.
Gotta rage.
But, I picture it. We complain a lot about how, everything is unjust. There's too much power and control in the hands of too few. And there's no corrective mechanism to make that happen. I mean, we're hopeful that, Donald Trump and RFK Jr. and Elon Musk just neuter the system enough that takes some of that power and control away. But I give it like a 5% chance, and even them being able to do enough to bring it back into calibration with the rest of us. I mean, do you think there will ever be a power and a benefit of people in that strata that we don't get to enjoy. Right? So you get pulled over, you get a ticket, a judge gets pulled over, are you going to have confidence that he's going to get the same ticket, he's going to get the same lecture, and he's going to get the same penalties as you?
Yeah, I think people will always help their friends, you know, especially those friends in high places. And I think that's going to be human to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've benefited from it. Like we've had, customers and clients that are in those positions and didn't even ask for it, and I got a benefit that I know that nobody else gets, and I feel freaking dirty when I'm offered that, thinking like, I bet you that happens a lot more than just with me, right?
Yeah.
So you're a regular person that doesn't know people, and you just suffer the consequences of the rule of law, and you're like, I'm cool with that, so long that it applies to freaking everybody.
Yeah, I remember many years ago, probably my early 20s, maybe, if that. I got a speeding ticket. I was pulled over. I did not realize I was in a school zone. And so I was going the speed limit of the road, but it would have been less because of a school zone, which I did not know I was in. Well, if you ever get a speeding ticket in a school zone, automatically you have to go to court. Doesn't matter how much you were over. It doesn't matter anything. You have to go to court if it's a school zone. So I went and we showed the judge, and she saw that, I was actually going the speed limit. It was like 4:30 in the afternoon in a town I don't live in. Didn't know where the school was. Didn't know I was in a school zone. I was dressed very nicely. I was very respectful. She believed me, the judge. She's like, I believe you. I realize you didn't do this on purpose. Just be careful next time. Don't worry about the ticket, paid court costs, and she threw out the ticket. And I thought that was very nice. I thought it was very fair. I did what I was supposed to do when I went to court, and I was respectful, and the judge saw that, and I think that it worked out in my favor. Well, my dad, many, many, many years ago, worked in the court system, and he said, she saw your last name and hooked you up. And I said, that's not true. And she's like, I bet so. I bet she saw your last name, knew who you were related to, and threw your ticket out. And I was like, now, deep down to my core, I do not think that is what happened. I think I was in a courtroom, by the way, full of people in like sweatpants who just rolled out of bed, who don't know how to talk to an adult, let alone a person of authority. I think I looked really good, and I had a very good point, and she believed me. And I still wonder, like, if that was thrown out because of my last name, I feel like most people would be like, whew. But in this case, I'd be like, oh, it better not have been. What do you think? Do you think that was a good chance?
100%.
You don't think it was because...
No.
Come on.
I do not. I think that is human nature. I think all the ethnic groups that stuck together, I think that looked out for one another, and you had the Irish groups, and you had the Italians, and you had the Greeks and the Germans. That's what they did for one another. They looked out for their...
His thing is...
So your tribe is the people that know you.
Yeah, she must have recognized the last name, and maybe she's related to these people in this court system from years before. I think he was already retired.
First off, I don't believe that an attractive blonde girl gets a ticket in the first place. That's number one.
I did.
I don't believe that
Well, the
part.
cop was a female. Does that matter to you?
You were screwed. Like, that is your...
The cop was female.
Female cop.
I didn't even know what I did. Gave her
Have you ever worked over a cop with the cuteness and got out of a ticket? Have you ever used what it is you to get out of a ticket?
I don't think so.
Cops walking up to the door, you're like, oh, I got to prepare. Lower the shirt a little bit, flip the hair, change the tone. No.
I'm very respectful. I'm very nice. I am honest. There was one time I thought I was getting a DUI. Not that I was drunk, but it was at night. I had dropped a friend off at her car from a bar parking lot. Cops saw me leave a bar parking lot, and then I missed my turn, so I did one of these. And here come the lights, and I went, oh my God, I know exactly how that looked. And older cop, you've been drinking tonight? I said, just stupid. I'm just stupid. I said, I know exactly what that looked like. I missed my turning lane, and I the wheel, and I know exactly how that looks at this time of night. And he just said, I believe you. Let's pay attention to where we're going now. I said, yes, sir. I'm good now. And he let me go. Do you think that he believed me? That I just
Listen,
I get how that looked, but I'm not wasted. I promise you.
Okay, so let me devil's advocate. There's
Okay.
a whole group of people, mostly minorities, who feel they don't get a shake from cops, from courts, from anyone, right? So if it was a black kid that was in that car and did the same shit that you did, do you think that cop is just like, oh, I believe you? Or do you think you carried some benefit into that conversation where you got benefit of the doubt?
I probably did.
Yeah. And do you think it's because you spoke nicely and you were polite and whatnot? And maybe the black kid was like, I freaking hate cops. Like, why are you bothering me? Dressed in a certain way, looking a certain way, high suspicion, and now they don't get benefit of the doubt.
Well, I'm sure that's entirely possible.
Yeah. So if this is part of human nature, where the groups that we are in or the groups that we're attracted to get special benefits from, are you ever going to work that out of the culture? Not a chance, right? You're still going to have certain people looking out for other certain people, just like they did in the Industrial Revolution. Even before that, with the groups that came over here to work, they stuck together because they knew that there's nobody going to have my best interest. Only my group's going to have my best interest. So what my rage against the machine on this is, the machine shouldn't have the power to be able to wield that, because it requires that you have all really good people manning the levers of the machine. If they're not good people, they're just going to use the machine as a weapon, and you need to dismantle the machine and make it really, really small so you can't do much damage with it. You got to take into account that people are what's fallible. The machine in general is just a machine.
Yeah. I mean, it's run by people that are fallible.
Shitty people.
Just out of curiosity, was the phrase Rage Against the Machine coined before the band or after the band?
I think there's been Rage Against the Machine for a lot longer than the band's been out there, for sure.
That's just, I never knew. I only knew that phrase from the band, obviously, but I didn't know which came first.
I'm going to say it was way before the 80s and 90s, for sure.
It could have been.
But even if it wasn't, it would have taken on a different name that meant the same thing, that raging against the king or raging against the despot or whatever, whoever was in power. Because it's what we do. As people, we're supposed to keep the people who, are in charge of us super honest. They got to be awesome, or else you get the King Georges of the world who are just oppressive and kill people and take their shit, and they're just big douchebags, and they have all kind of power. So we don't want to be mini England, right?
Yeah.
What we fought so hard to distance ourselves from, and we become a mini version of that. It's Animal Farm. I'm telling you, like every book that I read, I didn't make I made the connection, but I didn't make it like this. I'm like, oh, we'll never do that. The books taught us a valuable lesson, right?
Yeah.
And what do? We just.
So how do we know then, devil's advocate, you talked about growing up, you were the anti-establishment, pushback,
Still
rage
am.
against. How do we know that young Joe Danier was this sort of pioneer for the way things should be? Or would we go back in time and people would say, no, little young Joe Danier is just a bad kid who doesn't follow the rules. He's difficult. He doesn't want to listen to what's good for him.
So I would be able to cite the books that I was reading at the time. And really, the pendulum is what kept reoccurring to me in all the books that I was reading. And it's not necessarily that you have a North Star, a true north of what should be, but it's a balance between two opposing forces. And the further they get away into one segment, the more it's necessary to push them back in the other segment. And neither one of the pendulum swings is truly evil. Look, I use the farm analogy, right? There are two times in a farm. There is the nurturing and the plowing and the planting, and there's the harvesting, right? And if you look at it like that, there's always going to be the time where harvesting is necessary, because once you get plenty, you've got to trim it down so the next season can be just as good as the last season. And all of the vices are going to tell you, no, keep harvesting. The fruit is still good. And there's real damage when you over-harvest, and there's over-damage when you over-nurture. It's the balance between those two opposing forces. So as a kid, like, I would always look and say, okay, well, my predictions came from knowing, like, where are we at and what's the middle between these two opposing forces? And once it gets too far away from that middle, it's important to push it back in the other direction. And that's why, like, you're not going to have ever a Republican or Democrat rule, because the further you get away from one, the more inspired the other side, more pissed off the other side, the more energy is going to be on the other side, and it pulls that pendulum back in the other direction.
I wish I could have been a little more like you. You know how ridiculous I was? Here's a quick story.
Okay.
In first grade, I think it was, we were coming in from recess. We were all on the playground playing, and we're coming in. And this teacher comes up to me with a little boy who's crying. And she looks at me and she said, "Did you hit him?" I don't know who this kid is. I didn't hit anybody. What are you two talking about? And in that moment, I overthought it so much and I got so freaked out. All I could think is, if you say no, she's not going to believe you and you're going to get in trouble for lying. And that's going to be worse. And so I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Inside now." And it was like they were going to give me detention. And I went home and I told my parents, I said, "I didn't hit this kid." And everybody is like, "Why did you say you did?" Because I was afraid they wouldn't believe me and I would get in more trouble. And I thought this was less trouble if I just went with it. And
Well, you do have that aura of violence. So,
I know.
It would be tough.
you should have seen me as a first grader, just pounding kids left
Telling
and
you.
right. Why? Why would I do that? What would Joe Danier have done in that situation?
Well, my big problem was that I would say things to adults that I probably shouldn't have said because they were truthful. And at that time, parents and elders did not like to be questioned. They like to say dumb shit and just have you go along with it. And so we were in the era of stupidity
That's
amongst
probably
adults.
where I was.
For
is
sure.
You don't talk back to an adult. Just
Right.
go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, then I manifested it. I knew that got me in all loads of trouble. So I put that into, like, comedic relief. And so I did use sarcasm and funnies in order to say the same thing, but you didn't have as much force against you when you made a joke about something as you did when you just, railed against it. Because I'm a young kid. I'm stupid. How dare I question an adult? And I couldn't help it. When there was an untruthful thing in front of me, I don't care who said it, I'm going to push against that untruthful thing. So, yeah, I would have fought to the death.
You would
about
have
the
said,
hit.
"Who the hell are you two?"
Dude, it would have been
What are you
terrible
talking
for
about?
them because it would have never ended. I would have died on that hill. And
You're like, and if she didn't believe me, I would have hit the kid, so at least I'm in trouble for something.
yes. Yes.
If only I could
Well,
have been
and
like
as
that.
an adult, you don't ever hit situations like that now. Where now I'm a little bit tethered because like I won't die on that hill if there's something that's unjust, but it's not worth the energy to push it. I'll just bail on it, and it's not worth the argument. But in public, when you're faced with people, I'll tell you this one time that I was in, I think it was a restaurant. And a kid came up to me. He was a little younger than me. I was probably 24 years old or something like that. A kid walks up to me, and he's got 4 big dudes behind him. And he said, "Did you call me a bitch?" Like that. And I said, "No, I didn't call you a bitch. You called me a bitch." And I'm like, "I'm sorry for calling you a bitch." And I walked away because I knew.
You're like, is this the hill I want to die on?
I knew that was the right answer. And I survived it. I didn't have to fight anybody.
And you never actually did call
No, I never saw the dude before.
Oh my God.
I think somebody wanted to pick a fight with somebody, right?
Yeah.
And you got 4 guys that didn't know any different that were going to pummel the shit out of me if I stood my ground on that one. So
Yeah.
I gracefully bowed out with a subtle apology and went in that direction and left my meal on the table, and I was done.
Aww.
But that's what society is. In a nutshell, it's right there.
Yeah, I have weird situations where sometimes I am just that meek little, whatever you say, I don't like confrontation. And that's probably like 90% of the time. Just, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to question you. So I'm just going to say okay to whatever you say, even though I know I'm right and you're wrong. I'm not starting a fight. I just want out of this uncomfortable situation. But then there's 10% that I'm like, no, this is bullshit. And it's typically, it's got to be someone that I don't care about. I don't know them. The situation does not matter. I'll probably never see them again kind of thing. And I'm pissed. And I mean, then that's where like, I'll just shout threats, empty threats that I know I can't do, but make someone think I'll hurt them.
You fluff up your chest.
Yes,
You
like,
you posture yourself. I told you that. That aura of violence is all about.
I think I yelled someone one time. I think I said something like, "I will close your windpipe," I think is what I said to someone. Or I screamed it at them.
You will close your windpipe.
Close your
That
windpipe.
is the worst phrasing.
I think
of a
I
threat
heard that
ever.
on TV or something.
Let's
I
rephrase
heard it
that.
on TV or I don't know. I think that's what I said. I think first I threatened to punch them in the throat. They were still being obnoxious, and I may have screamed something to the effect of "I will close your windpipe." Or
You
don't know
might
how
have
to
to
do
use
that.
that again, and we've got to update that so that it's
Okay.
not. It sounds too proper, like somebody who's never closed somebody's windpipe before. So you're not closing the
Noted.
windpipe. The close feels like the door. That's the way the windpipe's supposed to work. You want to collapse someone's windpipe. You want to break
Crush it.
shred it, crushing.
Well, crush
So
your
let's practice
windpipe.
that. I want to crush. Say it with emotion.
I will crush your windpipe.
Okay, that's a little believable.
I think I saw it on like King of Queens or something. I didn't know I was getting bad advice from watching TV.
Might have
Crush
been
your
it
windpipe.
might have been a laugh point where they wrote the joke so it seemed like someone who's never closed anybody's windpipe before would say
Yes.
it. I want to crush your
Hey,
windpipe.
listen, I'll have you know it worked. These people got freaked out.
I'm sure.
They're
Look-
like, this chick's crazy. Let's just
You
go.
ever play poker?
Maybe once or
Okay,
twice.
the bluff works sometime. But if
Yeah.
you overuse the bluff, eventually you get caught. And same
Yeah.
thing goes with
I think they thought she probably isn't going to actually crush anyone's windpipe, but she's clearly crazy and hostile right now, and let's just go.
yeah.
It
Well,
could've-
the me's of the world. If you just act crazy enough in front of me and I can't justify the expense of energy to fight you, and I really like to fight. I'm the 90% guy that is looking for a reason to like go at it. But I also that other 10% there has to be some benefit in the end. Like I have to defend my honor or protect somebody or something. And if it's just for shits and giggles, like I'm gonna bail on that fight. And it seems like almost all of the predicaments that could end up in a closing of a windpipe, I bail out of because there's just no benefit in the end.
I find that I do get a little more scrappy, I think, if I'm defending someone else. I wonder why that is.
All right, can you picture somebody threatening your family and you've got to take a stand where you know that you will probably die and throwing yourself in between somebody you care about and taking death ahead of them?
Can I picture that?
Can you picture it? Is it something you know in an instinctual moment you will do?
I could see that happening if it's like my kids or something. Probably.
You'll take the bullet.
Probably.
Because you got to rehearse that stuff. Like you don't know.
No, I'm getting freaked out.
Mentally rehearse. Like in a fire, you got to put yourself in the house with a fire and know exactly what you're going to do. Or you get in the cabin and there's a bear in the cabin. You got to know what you're going to do. Those situations, you got to mentally know. So when you're hit, your brain already knows what you're going to do.
Yeah, see, I don't go that far. I'm just like, someone's being a punk and I got to go get in their face. That's what I envision. I'd be proud if I could do that.
In my kids' school, so most schools have these active shooter drills that they do.
Yeah.
And everybody just like hunkers down and tries to avoid the shooter. You know what my kids' school teaches them?
What?
Rush them. You're going to have 20 kids that all run at you, and we're going to crush you.
Well, I've taken an active shooter drill where they say to do that if you have nothing else. You can't get out.
It
You
should
can't
be
escape.
the
They're
first.
coming in.
It should be mathematically, you have every advantage to overwhelm. 20 people can overwhelm and crush that person if you do it quickly and you've rehearsed it and you know exactly what you're going to do. You're just waiting for it. Somebody comes to that door, you know the first person that's going to jump, push the gun down, pull the head down, kick out the legs, put that MFer on the ground. Right? And then maybe one person dies versus the entire classroom are just sitting there sitting ducks while someone picks them off.
Yeah.
Come on. That's mathematically
See, that's
stupid.
what we learned when we did it was a job I had years ago. We hosted a active shooter drill in case someone came into like a workplace or a school setting or something of that nature. And yeah, it was very much blockade yourself in a room. If you
And
can't
hope
get out,
they don't come here.
But
I'm
yeah,
telling
don't
you,
let
the
them in.
nu-
But if they get in, then you go hard.
Every movie and television show had a hero that would sacrifice themselves because we had big, hairy balls. The heroes all had balls. Now we eat all this soy, and when the balls go in, and then we're like, we're going to chant at you when you come through the door, and hopefully you don't choose me.
But here's the thing, I think.
Yeah.
I think back in the day, people had bigger balls because they didn't have as many weapons. You know,
bullshit.
The fist fight
Bullshit.
day, the day where people
we
had honor and they fought
all of our
fairly.
influences were the hero disciplines. You knew you were going to go make the sacrifice for the other guy, and he felt the same way, and she felt the same way. You're on an airplane. There's a hijacker. You bum rush that dickhead all at once. Like, everybody talks to one another. If there's any hijackers on here, we're going to beat the shit out of you, right?
Yeah.
And everybody decides they're going to do it, and you trust the other people that they're going to come through in the moment. No such thing as hijackers. They prey upon the fact that we're all little soy Nancys.
Nowadays, they're going to record the hijacker and everybody else that's attacking him.
Yeah. So we got to get back to the hairy nuts version of human beings and scare the shit out of these people who are just opportunists who know that we're little pussies and we're going to put up with anything they want to do to us.
Yeah.
Beat the shit out of a couple of those people, and, it's not the best way of doing things anymore.
The fight back.
Heck yeah.
Speaking of fight back, this is on a far less violent scale.
I'll bring violence into it. Let's do it.
Let's see if we can make it violent.
Yeah.
More violent. Have you heard about this AI granny that wastes scammers' time?
No.
Have you seen this? You have not. I am telling you about an
certainly
AI
are.
thing. Oh my God. So I don't know who developed it. I don't know the details of it. I've seen snippets of information. But somebody created an AI program that sounds like an old lady. And I don't know I don't know if this is something people download or what. I don't know how it works. But when scammers call and they reach this little old lady that they think they're going to get one over on, she purposely wastes their time.
Yes.
And annoys the shit out of them. Just keeps talking to them. Is no matter how angry or frustrated they get with her, she's just, oh my, well, you sound a bit upset. And it's just this little AI granny that keeps them going so that they can't call anyone else.
Yeah, just waste their time so they're hung up on the phone with them.
Yeah.
Think about thousands of people doing that and how they'll stop doing it because it's not effective anymore.
Yeah. The moment now, instead, when they hear a little old lady's voice, now it's not, I'm screwing over someone's grandma. It's, oh, is that this AI thing?
Yes,
I better
I love
hang
it.
up.
Yeah, that's an innovation I can actually get behind.
Yeah. We'll
How
have
many
to
of
look
those
it up.
people do you just, like, I hear stories about innocent people who just didn't know any better, and they come crying to us when they lose $20,000 or $30,000 from this. And after the fact, you feel so bad for them, and you just want to take those you just want to punch them in their freaking, you want to close their windpipe, right?
I want to crush their windpipe. Get violent. Yeah. So somehow we're going to make AI Granny violent. Or she makes them violent, apparently. Apparently they get real mad.
Those are my favorite. Like when somebody takes advantage of a scammer, like, again, I love that shit.
That's all I got. Violent ninja AI Granny.
In Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice,
Yeah.
threatening them.
Oh, I can't find the PIN number. That was so bad.
All right, what else?
What else? What else?
So in that same vein, like, we're going to hear about United Healthcare, insurance companies, and how evil they are in our society. And I'm in that vein of frustration where I know what's going to be said even before, and it's all unproductive talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the real, like, the most truthful part of this is if you have X, okay? So X would be the noun that everything that you don't like. So you have an insurance company, or you have a Dracula, or you have a roach, right? All three of those things. You don't like those things. You don't like how they operate. So when it comes to giving them responsibility, You don't go to the thing and say, hey, I invited Dracula over and he freaking bit me, right? Mm-hmm. So if you give Dracula more responsibility and then you're surprised when Dracula bites you, right? It was a bad choice on your part. So fast forward in the conversation. So do you have a choice not to have medical insurance through an insurance company? Just as a citizen, you have the ability.
Yeah.
What are your choices?
Not have insurance, period.
Okay.
Pay out of pocket yourself.
Okay.
You're saying other than have insurance through an insurance company?
Yeah, I don't want to give any money to an overpriced insurance company at all. And if I do, I want the probabilities that I'm ever going to have to deal with that insurance company to be so far below 0.00009%. And I hate them so bad that I would do everything in my power to keep upping my probability that I never have to deal with them.
Wasn't it at one point illegal to not have insurance?
Car insurance, yeah.
Health insurance.
Maybe with Obamacare.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Is that no longer a thing?
It's changed a couple times. I don't know if there's a mandate for it now.
Yeah, when this all came up, I mean, I know quite a few people that do not have health insurance, so I'm thinking it's no longer the case.
Okay.
But I remember there was a time it was illegal. You had to have
I'm pretty sure when it first came out that you either had to buy into it or provide your own. You had to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must not be a thing anymore.
I hope not. Because that was the first step to socialized medicine, which is if you want to destroy that industry completely, that was the gateway drug into completely killing it.
Yeah.
But there would be some to argue that socialized medicine is exactly what we need. These other developed countries are completely have socialized medicine, and why can't we?
Yeah, and I saw I guess I didn't really read the article. It was more like a headline or a snippet. The shooter who shot the CEO.
Yeah.
Not that is okay. And I would never, ever, ever say that's okay. And if you think that's okay, you're crazy. But this article was talking about, I guess, this shooter left some note or manifesto or something about his mother and the suffering she has been going through and the difficulty with insurance and denying things, which led her to her suffering and all this, what I guess is what made this guy snap. In that instance, I keep thinking, okay, then what should he have done? What would have been the right thing to do? Obviously not kill someone, but if you were like, my loved one is suffering, we are suffering, and we can't get help, what do you do?
Yeah, and that is, okay, so if you had a government that was representative of you, and you came before them, and your interest as a citizen of the country that you pay taxes in, then you have a grievance and you stand before them. It is the job of the people who represent you to take that grievance and do something about it. Mm-hmm. So the proper way to do it, if you had a system that wasn't some kind of self-interested machine that you're going to rage against, that they would take that seriously. That's the representative government is all about when there's a suffering segment, that the whole job of the machine is to try to engineer a way to aid the people that you represent. Right? But it's lopsided, where government is just a really financially, it's a good deal for people to make a lot of money just by being involved. It's not the people are excused to get there, but then it's just about, adding financial gains on your end. It's not a representative government. You don't have the ability to go and make a grievance against something and see how few. When I was growing up, we had Jim Trafficant was our representative here. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the last politicians that I knew that if you walked in his office and you gave him the story of what was happening, he would go to Washington and he would be telling your story and getting something done in Washington, and you would be able to cause that change. Now, he was not a popular guy, right? They put him in jail because of, what the things that he did. But he was from an era of heroes that were willing to sacrifice himself for those people, for the people that he represented. So this is almost like it's got a couple different layers, because first you got to make it representative government again. Because if nobody's listening, then you're going to hold the insurance company accountable. And go ahead and look to see how many politicians benefit from the insurance company being able to get away with what they get away with. They're the number one everything. The advertising spender, lobbying groups.
I almost thought, like, when this guy shot the CEO of a health insurance company, what did he think that was going to do?
Exactly. But here's what I think he thought it was going to do. You have two ways of going about this. You have revolution, right, where you get a big part of the population to grab their torch and pitchforks and go and get what you want. And then you've got the intellectual side of things where you go and argue your way into some kind of solution. And I can see the plight that if you can't argue your way into a solution because government is so broken that they're not open to changing things to the benefit of the consumer, because would a politician take their number one financier of their campaigns and go after them? No, it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So that's your first battle, is go grab your pitchforks and your torches and go after the connection between the industries of insurance and government and decouple them so that the people who represent you aren't put on the spot where, like, I got to choose the $1 billion for my campaign or little you who's got nothing, right?
Yeah. And you can't even keep me alive to fight for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're not going down the intellectual side of this discussion. We are going down the revolution side. Look at all the other civilizations. What was happening before their declines? This is what was happening before their declines. And government's going to make the same wrong move. So if you're looking up to them to say, when they see the time is nearing, they're going to make better choices. Bullshit. You need to dismantle that, make it something that's pure, much smaller, so that they are actually working to the benefit of the people they represent, period, across the board. So yes, if in a simple-minded person's, version of this, you go kill the CEO, and then the company's like, okay, we're not going to make profits. All that you did was deprive somebody of their father, right?
I know.
And their husband.
What does he think that's going to do?
Nothing freaking changes, and it took a bunch of people and made them look very bad because they're supporting the murder of another person with absolutely no... You know my little fight with the kid where I was going to get my ass beat because he thought I called him a bitch? Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of scenario. At the end of the day, I'm going to fight, and I got nothing on the other side of it. It was for the fight, not for any good purpose or reason.
Yeah. Yeah. People are crazy. We just need to start all over.
Get
good people in.
As much as I say it, and I've repeated myself for 10 years about the dismantling and the making government smaller, there's zero interest. And when I say interest, it's not like... the politicians don't have that as a fleeting thought in the side of their head. Their interests are counter to it. So they are disadvantaged by doing what I would say. None of the systems that they've effectively made work if they do what I say. They're going to be like, I'm going to take my own power away, make less money, and then be out of a job. Sure, I'm going to go along with that kind of thing. And it's never going to happen. So again, we're in for some kind of revolt. And what revolt it is, I don't know yet. Are we going to just rip CEOs out of every insurance company and burn them at the stake and do what every other version of us have done over time? And,
Yeah. So I've said this before and I'll say it again. When do we start your campaign?
Never going to put myself into that. I'm telling you.
No?
Every year that goes by, I know that I'm more needed and less interested in doing it.
More needed.
But
less interested. Why?
If I went there, I would have to go play the game as it is, or else I'd be just another person that would walk up on day one and be put in jail because I didn't play the game. They'd find some reason to make me go away, and I would have the shortest stint in government that there ever was.
So then really all you can do, because one person or even a handful of people that would not be corrupt, that would actually work the system the way it was intended, is not large enough. You have to almost convince enough people, enough of the public to not support those that are playing that game, that are not doing
Even
it.
better, you would have to get representatives. Like every once in a while you see a glimmer of this. You'll see a politician that will break from the status quo and do something that's very unpopular. Mm-hmm. And watch what happens to their career once they break from the status quo. They go away. Either directly they go away from some scandal, or they fall out of popularity. They're never put on a committee. They're never given any power. They're just shielded, and they just kind of go into the bushes like Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
In that, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think John Fetterman was probably the most recent one that, and Cenk Yanger, that the guy that does the podcast, the Young Turks, whatever his name.
Oh, yeah.
So those two guys are really pushing hardline against the status quo. And they say things that are unpopular within their own party. And I'm kind of watching to see how far they're going in that direction. Is this guy a guy that's just talking from principle? And when the screws get put on him to shut up and get in line, that they're going to keep talking and say, I'm going to rage against this machine? Or are they going to get there and saying, that's way too hard. I'm going to just be deprived of everything that's good about this job. I'll fall in line super quick. I'm going to go on that direction because every person that I picked, even a local guy, Tim Ryan, got elected to Congress, saying all the right things. He was a Democrat. And as soon as he got into office, he just turned into one of all of them. He saw that and it's not, I mean, you got to think when you walk into that place on day one, you have a choice to make. Either I'm going to be effective if I have to limit some of my own principles, or I'm going to keep my principles and get absolutely nothing done. It's not an easy choice to make.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even so much that your character will be ripped apart, your reputation will be ripped apart, you won't get anywhere with what you're trying to do. But dare I say, I feel like your life could even be put in danger.
For sure.
And your family.
You'll get destroyed. That machine takes no compunction into destroying anybody who pushes against it.
Look at everybody that has these theories as far as RFK's family,
So if everybody who's on this new cabinet just destroys everything there, I will be the happiest dude on the planet. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it really needs to be done, is ripped apart so it's non-functional and rebuild just the components that are necessary and make it kind of smart. Because we're not going to slowly dismantle it through attrition. It's going to take wrecking the shit out of it in order to get it to where it needs to go. It needs neutered so badly.
So who could you, just random thought, random question.
Yeah.
This next president, obviously it's Donald Trump, has only 4 years. And he can't run again. Mm-hmm. 4 years is not a lot of time to make massive change. If you had to pick an ideal candidate, if ideally you could get it done, who would you say would be a great person to then follow behind Trump to keep the momentum of getting that important accomplished?
So what needs to happen, and I don't think Trump's capable of doing this, is to write a doctrine that can be passed from every Republican president. Okay, so have a core playbook on what needs to happen. And we know that this is a 20-year, sledge, whatever. It's going to take a little while to get this stuff done. And it's going to have to go beyond your term in order to be fully functional. So when you write that out, you're saying, okay, here are the parts of it. And if it's popular and it works and you're good at marketing it and you're good at telling the story, then you hand that book to the next guy. And it doesn't even matter what that person does. If they're on that playbook, they get elected because if it's good and everybody, has respect for what's happened, they'll continue it on.
Like here are the guidelines for the position.
Exactly. Yeah, but if it sucks, then they get voted out and somebody else gets a chance. It's almost like we're in this experiment where everybody's trying to find out who's got the best ideas, right? Uh-huh. And instead of being like we're picking out the good ideas and assembling like a super idea from it, it's the other direction. Everybody sucks. There's not a single good idea. Everything fails catastrophically. So it's almost like it's immune from any kind of successes because if somebody starts coming in there and having successes, it will glow in front of the public. And the other people will look inept, incapable, right? Mm-hmm. And then the people who are getting shit done will be like heroes again. And then the nuts drop back out of the body, hair grows on them again, soy emanates like out of the pores, and now we're back to the manly hero portion that we should be in.
What is it about soy?
Soy has estrogen. Estrogen is masking, men and boys' testosterone, making us not be as manly as we need to be.
Should I be eating more soy?
No.
I hear it's bad for you.
Too much. You should consult your doctor. But throwing off the hormonal balances by using any kind of chemical, any kind of food, and over too much of it, and so like when you got soy-based food, you're eating it in everything. If you're vegetarian, your meats and your proteins are coming plant-based. And so you're getting too much of one thing. Our bodies weren't designed to get too much of one thing. You got to sample thing from the meat groups and the plant groups and the fruit. You got to be varied so that if you get too much protein or too much, anything's bad. Remember I was telling you like the pendulum? When you go far in one direction, it's always bad. You don't have to figure out what I'm talking about there. It's, did you grab a pendulum and you pulled it back really far? That's bad, no matter what you're talking about.
Moderation. In all things.
All things. One last topic.
Okay.
Google came up with a new quantum computer chip called the Willow. Not the Willow, just Willow.
Okay.
You know anything about quantum computers?
Of course I do.
Oh.
No. Quantum computers.
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like I'm gonna have to do a lot of explanation before we get into the actual article because it's a game changer.
Okay.
So physics. Oh, man, this is deep. This is.
Listen, I have told you this before, but you have got to watch Big Bang Theory because this is exactly a Penny and Sheldon moment. Like this, I swear, was in an episode where he literally tries to teach her physics. So, go on.
Okay, I'm gonna say some words that aren't gonna make material sense. Like it's so
or
abstract.
any sense whatsoever.
It's very abstract.
Okay.
So first, there's in mathematics and in computers, we use binary, right? And light switches, binary, on off, right? We get to understand all programming, computational power, all that kind of stuff comes from binary operations.
Okay.
A computer just basically processes things by translating it down to a binary operation and then into useful things, right?
Okay.
Well, quantum computers doesn't do that. Okay? It uses more than binary.
It's non-binary?
It's some would say too much soy. So it uses a superposition. Okay? Where it introduces something new where something can be both off and on at the same time, and an answer isn't established until something is observed.
Schrodinger's cat.
100%. Look at you, Penny.
Listen, that's the only physics thing I know anything about.
Yes.
That's it. Okay.
So using quantum computers, because things don't have to occupy a binary space, you can put more things in the same amount of space. Uses a ton of electricity and it gets really hot and it's not a practical thing. Like you're never going to, well, you may own a quantum computer sometime in the future. But anyway, back to the current thing, this chip that everybody's been working, and this started happening, I think 2010 is when I started reading about these, I think it was light-operated quantum computers. They were just in its infancy. And it's taken 14 years from that day to today to saying that they can take on operations and actually do something useful with it. So here's the difference. It would, let me look this up so I don't quote this wrong. Let me say it first and I'll look it up, make sure I'm right.
Okay.
All right. So this quantum computer can process in 5 minutes what a traditional computer would take 24 years to process. So let me
I thought you were going to say like 24 minutes or maybe hours.
let me see what
5 minutes versus 24 years.
let me make sure my math is right and I read it correctly. Oh no, I was way wrong. This said it can complete in 5 minutes a complex computation would take the most powerful supercomputers 10 septillion years, more than the estimated age of the universe.
Septillion?
So I was off by a little bit. Not 24 years. 7 septillion.
10 septillion years.
10 septillion years.
I don't even know that word.
In 5 minutes, right? It can do as much processing as a traditional today computer can do in 10 septillion.
Far beyond anyone's lifetime.
Since the beginning of the universe, there's not even enough time that has ever existed.
Our planet has
Yes.
not even existed as long
as what a
Holy
traditional computer would
crap.
take to process. So all of the information from the beginning of time can be processed in 5 minutes through using this processor.
This is how humans get replaced.
You think that that's going to be the utility of the super
The superbot, the
yeah.
super like human robot something.
So the conversation I had with my kid this morning because we talk about physics every day on the way to school.
It's that Montessori education.
I know. Trying to keep them from becoming Taylor Swift, though. So anyway, the discussion was, it's not necessarily that our next adventure is going to be in how fast we can process things, but how fast we can deliver data into that system. Okay, so if you have something that works far faster, like if I took my computer and wrote an AI to go and look up everything about Joe Danier, right? The AI might be able to process all that information, but it has to go to like the internet and Facebook and Twitter, and it has to do research. So it's sitting there idle waiting to process something, but it's going out and fetching the data that it needs, and then instantaneously it could put it together, right? So we'll take things like computer modeling. You take a bunch of data that you got from temperature readings, barometric pressures, precipitation, all of that, right? And you feed that data into weather patterns, and you could tell this quantum computer to give me a 1 million year forecast on what the weather is going to be like sometime in the future, and it will run modelings that will happen so fast and so for instance, have you ever watched a model go down?
No.
All right, when they do computer modeling, when they take data sets and they use probabilities to overlap the data sets, okay? And then you're going to have fringes where they did it with the election. And they said, we ran this 1,000 times, and in all of the models, because it's a probability, that Trump wins and also Kamala wins, okay? And the more that it runs and takes in different data sets, the more layered it gets on what's likely to happen. So they ran 1,000 of these modeling, circuits, and they came up with a band of what was likely to happen because it was the same in almost all of their models. So you take off the edges, the fringe of what didn't repeat through those models, and you kind of take a best guess that in taking in consideration of age or race or ethnicity or economy or whatever, it can keep reframing, the model until you get sort of like a band of high certainty.
So when you talk about reframing these models, it's like looking at data as to what demographics typically vote for what party. Put that info. Okay, well, how many years did that actually pan out? Maybe that's info. Okay, well, was there any time that didn't work? Yep, because this demographic could vote for this, and now that info. And all these little tiny bits of info go in it to make a extremely educated prediction.
Yeah, and each one of those are a different variable. So you're running variables in companion with other variables, and that's how you get a high level of probability when you see no matter which variables you put on there. But we're not talking about like 9 and 10 variables. We're talking about millions of different types of variables, where we might make weather forecasting based on 3 variables. A quantum computer can take into consideration of millions of different variables. And even the way that you unbias the data models is that you put cynicism within the model, where you take bad data and you try to suss it out using how quickly and how many different overlaps that you can do on the data.
So is this kind of like, my brain's thinking like Farmer's Almanac makes a prediction based off of some past statistics. This thing would be like, I'm going to be way more accurate than Farmer's Almanac because I got a whole lot more statistics and I can get you even more of a most likely.
Yeah, because like I said, it's the layering that's missing from our modeling right now. It gives too much credibility to the data sets that we have. So I'll give you like how the computer brain would look at this. So if you put a model to go out there and say, is climate change real? Right? The models for climate change would take in numeric data from measurements over the course of time, right? Mm-hmm. But then another layer would be the people who support climate change and weighing their data, and then the people who oppose the climate change and weighing their data, and then just keep building these layers on top of layers of things that you can contrast and compare. Right? We treat data almost like a religion at this point. When the science has data, then we just trust it, and if it's wrong, we're kind of screwed. Where we can take all data and use other characteristics to include or exclude from our data sets. But when humans do it, we build biases in it. When computers don't give two shits, right? So it only builds in the probabilities based on things that are 5,000 layers deep, and we can go into the millions.
Holy crap.
But you need a super fast computer in order to get to that high resolution data. Here's a good analogy of it. You ever do a flip book?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So flip books are just individually drawn pictures. And when they're looked at very quickly, make a really flowing image. The more pictures, you have two controls. Put more pictures in there and increase or decrease the speed that you flip it through, right? And we're going to guess the more pages of data that you have in there are better, give you higher resolution. And the faster that you flip it through gives you a better view of whatever you're looking through. If our current computers can do, we'll say 10 data points that are across a big timeline, and you pile 1 million data points on there with the ability to self-exclude and self-include, your resolution gets really high on the modeling, and you don't have to worry about some advocate scientists throwing stuff in there because they wanted to skew the results in a direction or the other.
So when you then go to Google or go to look something up that you want to learn about, you're getting more accurate information.
You are.
Without bias.
Yeah. Well, in the way that you exclude it with bias is that there are going to be things that are contested and things that aren't going to be contested. And when you're on the side of an argument, you don't like when things are contested, but the formulations need contested data, and because it can weigh that. It can say if somebody disagreed with it, then the variables of why you disagreed carry weight. And so, like, if you get profiled and say you have a tendency to believe these articles no matter what, and you have a tendency to believe these articles no matter what, well, it can figure out, where you've been unbiased and just cast out all the things that you're either going to be too supportive of or too opposed to. And, being that it can do so many variables and so quickly, it doesn't hamper a system because it can take in so much processing ability that would suffocate today's technology.
Dang.
But with AI, the big fear is that AI is it needs data, lots and lots of data in order to do its thing, and it's only as good as the data is, right? And so if it scans the internet and finds out truth, and it runs across data that is not truthful, well, it gets poisoned because it maybe had 10,000 data sets and 1,000 of them was untruthful. It's a high percentage, so it would get weighted into that.
Yeah.
Now you have billions and trillions and septillions of data sets. So one little piece, nugget of bad is such a small percentage of the full data set that, it has less weight.
Imagine the things you can find out with this and do with it.
Heck yeah.
And even like good and bad. If this power were to fall into the wrong hands.
Oh, it will. We're human beings, and every time we talk about
we'll
power,
mess it up.
We know Dr. Evil's going to get a hold of this, or Gru, and is going to take the
can you
moon
even imagine,
hostage.
I was just recently watching a video about psychics and, debunking psychics and stuff. Can you imagine somebody trying to pose as a psychic medium that can instantly find out just about everything about you and how they could manipulate people? That's freaky. Mm-hmm. The robots they're going to make. There's a movie now with Megan Fox, and she's playing this robot. I just saw the trailer for it, and this guy cheats on his wife and has sex with this robot, and he's got to break it off with her, and I think she must lose her mind or something, even though it's a robot. I have a lot of questions. About that movie. But
are those robots available yet? Are they for sale?
The Megan Fox robots?
Yeah.
I have questions to the man that slept with this robot.
Okay.
I have questions.
Ask your question.
No, they're graphic questions.
We're not going to talk about your questions today.
No, but I think we all know if you had sex with a robot that looked like a human but is not a human, how similar is it? I have questions.
You're going down that path. You're almost going to make us talk about it now. All right. So another application for the quantum computers. It's interesting that you brought that up with psychics. As human beings, we think we're original and we think we're really unique, right? But if you sample all of human beings and you had a profile on what people do and under different circumstances with different things that are happening to us in different environments, and I bet you that if we looked at enough data, we could profile someone and what they're going to do and what their state of mind is. It could tell you if you're going to be happy or sad. It could tell you if you're going to be stressed out or you're dealing with too much that your brain can handle. You put biometrics in that, and then you give it even more data. But what if, the FBI builds a criminal database, and not of people, but of profiles of what it means to be a criminal, what attributes contributed to illegal behavior. So we want to go after a rapist. Let's take a sampling of the last 1,000 rapists, and what were they? What was their mental capacity? What foods did they eat? What did they watch?
Trauma,
was there childhood trauma?
Abuse.
And we build into that,
yeah,
right, what it means, and then we scan people, and then we wait for somebody to be in that profile, high probability of them behaving in a way that rapists behave, and then we can kind of watch them. So it's almost like, you remember, what was that pre-crime movie, Minority Report? You have precogs,
I never saw that, but I've heard of it.
All right, so you got 3 precogs, and they're psychics, and they can see the future. And then they send, and this is in the future, they send law enforcement out before crimes are committed to arrest the people that are about to kill somebody or about to commit some kind of crime. But they use psychic abilities. So my quantum computer can look into the profiles and behaviors and environments and make high probability guesses as to who's going to break the law and intervene before they have a chance to do that thing.
Put them on like a no-fly list or on an FBI,
Or just watch. Once you got in mind that someone is a tinderbox and ready to explode, just watch their behaviors and wait for it to get close to something. And, and I'm a big believer in liberties and be anonymous, and I don't want people looking at what it is that we do. But if we're going down the path where we're going to spy on everybody anyway and we're giving all of our information, at least make it productive so that we can find out who's going to be
what happens one day if somebody shows up at your office or home and they're like, I'm with the FBI and I'm just checking on you? What do you mean? Well, you fit all the characteristics of a psychopath.
No, listen. You could tell me about it. You can sit down with me and say, listen, we've had some murders in the past, and everything you're doing right now contributes to the mental state that contributes to murdering someone. So we want to know. We're not going to say you're going to kill somebody, but we can make some changes right now. Here's where you hit real big on. Okay, this just happened to you. Go get some help and come down out of that moment, make these changes, and then you come out of that probability zone, and then we don't have to watch you anymore. Just bringing it to the attention. Can you imagine going up to somebody who's going to do something and just giving them a suggestion that they're in an unhealthy band and they're likely to do something? That'd be great information to give to someone.
But how much solicitation would you receive from therapists, government entities, all these people that are like calling you up like, hey, I think you need some help. I'm getting help. Oh my God. Like the whole world is spying on
John
you.
Smith, the pre-attorney. You're going to commit some crimes and we want you on retainer.
It's like, I get it. I had a shitty childhood, but I'm not going to do anything. I am fine.
But if somebody in your world right now came to your door, knocked on it and said, Kelin, we've looked at your profile here. You're going to get the flu, right? Everything that you're doing, that people do, environmentals, a lot of people say, you're going to get the flu. And then you're like, thanks a lot. I mean, now I'm going to do some different things.
Well, first I'd be a little creeped out.
But did they give you helpful information? Because you can make different choices to not get the flu.
If I can avoid the flu, I would love to. Yeah.
Well, this level of psychic predictions that these computers can make when given enough variables and profile data about your profile can make those kind of predictions for you.
But yeah, you would have to allow them all kinds of information about you and your life.
Okay, I want you to see what Facebook and Google know about you at this point. You are not concerned about keeping your information from the people who are... Google is the person that is building.
I've Googled myself and was like, whoa.
No, That is not the depth of what they know
God.
about you. Your phone, when you go around, it tracks where you've been. It can tell you that you've been here before, deliver you map information, knows about what you're talking about when the microphone's on.
Oh, yeah. Ads that you're
Everything.
served are served to you based on all kinds of information they have of who you are, your age, where you live, what you do, where you go.
Yeah, that genie is out. Like, there's
Yeah.
no putting that one back in there.
How many times do you get in your car and your phone tells you so many miles to, and it knows where you're going?
Yeah.
Creepy.
Again, we're giving it the data they need to make those predictions. And if we angle this right, we'll actually get some benefit from those. Somebody tells you you're about to commit a crime. Somebody tells you that you're going to find a relationship. Someone's at
Yeah.
a financial peak, your health peak. Like, you can give a bunch of data because we've given it up already.
And would you be willing to sort of be okay with that, give up all your information and have people kind of watch you a little more closely if you knew it could prevent serious crimes or serious issues?
It's we're on our downfall anyway. So it's not like this downfall is any worse than the other downfall.
Yeah.
We're either going to get an oppressive AI computer system that's going to find out that we need to be destroyed, or we're going to get everybody drummed up into riots and destroy ourselves. Like, either way, we end in destruction. I don't really think we have a option where we all go back to, our peaceful religious beliefs and treat others nicely and sacrifice and be the hairy balls person.
Do you think basically the end of humanity will be humans die off because we destroy ourselves, and these robots stay here and run Earth just as we did, but without the issues?
Probably.
And Elon Musk.
And if we
will rule
survive
them.
that, they're just going to pluck our brains out, put it in a jar, and put us in the simulation anyway.
Brain in a jar.
Brain in a jar. It always ends
Always comes
in
back.
brains in a jar.
Yep.